G'day, Dave here. Now, I had a request, an answer from a gentleman recently about sole trader and the qualities of it. I thought I'd give a little bit more background from my perspective on the sole trader before moving to the concept of, as another gentleman put it, on the YouTube series, LLC as he called it for short, which is very cool. Now, this gentleman asked about sole trader. Now, he actually said, "Hi Dave, the gentleman here, currently setting up a small business in children's sports programs after school and wanting to set myself up as a sole trader and others contract to sports program. Location is Central Auckland, looking to grow Greater Auckland. I can chat through Zoom, and advice and basically getting the process in place to subcontract to the businesses." Okay. Now, he made a very good observation there. And sometimes we make great observations without realizing it. Now, that sounds very profound, but it's just the way it is. You see, what actually is a sole trader? Now, my understanding is that a sole trader specifically is a person who's in business, but with one key factor. What makes sole trader a sole trader is, believe it or not, tax. Yep, IRD. You see, when you're a sole trader, the term sole, obviously, and I'm stating the obvious here, so please forgive me, meaning single, trader, so single trader. Okay, that means it's you. That means that your IRD number is the track reference for everything that IRD does to keep an eye on you, because that's their job. Their job is, I phoned them up and I asked them, what is the singularity of your job, IRD? And they said their job is to teach us how to declare, and I wrote it down, how to declare your income, both personal and company. Now, the second thing that their job is to do, once we've declared it, is quite simply, their job is to tax us. That's right. So we become their conduit. And how they do that is through our IRD number. Okay, so that's basically being a sole trader. Now, this is where if you can work your mind around it, you'll suddenly go, holy cow. And we have those epiphany moments at different times, reading different things. Sometimes I'm just watching TV and something just goes bam, and it just goes, holy cow. I write it all down quickly so that I don't lose the moment. Now, the singularity, as I said before, about being a sole trader is one thing. Liability, okay, it's not actually so much about the taxes. That's a part of the equation. That's a mix of the equation. But it's about liability. If anything goes wrong with what you're doing, they come for your ass. Purely, simply, absolutely, okay? That's why people go to LLC, limited liability, or limited your ass company, okay, putting it another way. Now, I say this because having been in the hardware industry, the paint industry, having been in those industries for nearly 20 years, working for Levine's, Guthrie Barons, Mitre 10, out in West Auckland, you might go, that's who I know the guy from. Now, you see, a lot, and I say this because a lot of the painters that I've dealt with, a lot of the tradesmen, a lot of those guys, they've got to limit their liability, because if something goes custard, which it often does, I've heard some horrendous stories of things just going bad. They've got to limit the financial fallout, because that's what everything comes down to. As a sole trader, if something cocks up, your bank balance belongs to somebody else. Okay, that is the essence of sole trader, and that's why you have to have in place enough framework to not bog you down, but enough framework to flexibly protect you. Okay. Now, I've been looking at things like Xero. I've been looking at, which is a cloud-based financial system. Some know about it, some don't. I'm gradually learning more and more about it, because I'm not with Xero, but I'm seriously looking at it at the moment. Now, with a sole trader, any agreement you make with a third party, any agreement, any contract you go into, you're going into it as you, rather than as the limited liability company that is a separate IID number that is not you. Okay, you're a director there. You're still liable, but there's a separation point. I hope all this makes sense, because I just wanted to just focus on the responsibility that you have to grasp the essence, to grasp the responsibility of what you're liable for. And I've got to put it that way so that I don't scare you, but to comprehend what you're getting into. Okay, if you do go for something that involves a contract with other people and you're going to government-based, whatever, there's 3 and 4 people down the line. Now, if you're going to do that, I wouldn't touch it without protection. Okay, I wouldn't touch it without some form of limitation to the liability that you're setting yourself up to be party to. Okay, I've only just become limited liability myself November last year. Now, that was done through a professional, a gentleman who I've known for decades, grew up together, and he did it very well. Before that, I was just mucking around a little bit. As my wife said, it was a hobby business, okay? And I was sole trader. And, I just used it to sort of have a bit of fun. But I'm changing tack and trying to get more into the proprietariness, I think that's a word, of it. Proprietary. That's the word, proprietary nature of it. So I hope that makes sense, that if you're going to go into sole trader and to start to do this. Okay. See that? I've got a couple of business cards. Woo, that's blank. Okay, I'll try this one. There. Okay. Guess what? This is me, Dave Varley, keeping it real with you. I hope you don't mind. Okay. That's my business card. Okay. I've got 2 of them. And I say 2 of them because I have 2 businesses. One is financing the other. Okay, there's one. The second one, let's see if I can do this right. It's the one that I had prepared earlier. Is that one there. Now, I'm not sort of giving a big flash off here. So, okay, just enough there to sort of see it on the screen. Yeah. Now, so there you go. But I'm using one, and I got told I'm using one to finance the other, because if I don't, the one that I'm really gunning for, which will be a bit of a revolution in New Zealand, because the big companies are scared of doing it because it's not immediately equitable. Okay, but being as an individual that I am, I've decided to do it anyway, and the equitability, if there is such a word, will happen. Now, like I said before, I've gone limited liability from November last year. I'm putting in a framework around myself so that as I move forward each step, I'm naturally ready for it. Okay, I was talking to my little girl this afternoon, she's 12, and I told her that you're never fully ready for anything. Don't worry about it, do it anyway. Real simple. And the readiness will happen in the process. I know that better than anybody because I've moved from the paint hardware sales industry across to engineering. What do I know about engineering? That. Nothing. But there's a phrase that I give a lot of credibility to, and that is that attitude comes before aptitude in attaining altitude. Think about it. Attitude is more important than aptitude when striving for altitude. I just put it in 2 different ways. But let's just say my working career has got about another 10 to 15 years left, right? I don't want to be reliant upon the government for handouts when I retire. I want to have a degree of self-sufficiency, passion, direction, and cohesiveness that my wife and I don't have to move out of Auckland and live somewhere where it's cheap because the government pays stuff all. Okay, that's the essence of it. So I'm trying to look forward and trying to teach my daughter the value of doing so. Now, with all that in mind, this was a bit of an off-the-cuff piece because this gentleman sent through an email. And another guy also put on the YouTube clip about sole trader being a load of rubbish and LLC being the way. To a degree, they're both right, but nothing is ever absolute or purist, okay? There is a place for sole trader, absolutely, but so long as the liability of the project within the sole trader or the liability of the products or services being presented are not at a level which leaves you liable, as a sole trader. I mean, I only say that because what are we in now? 2020. Okay. I've been in about 4 different industries over my working career. The most relevant one to this particular moment is the fact that I used to, do you remember when Yuckers, in fact, I'll put it another way, Yuckers, the Yuckers, there was a massive splurge back in 2000, about 2004 to 2010, for about 6-7 years. Yuccas were the rage. And people were just planting them everywhere in their gardens, and the gardens were full of them, inside of houses. Yuccas were being sold like bloody wildfire out of the garden centres. Why? Because they were cool, they were trendy. But guess what? The New Zealand market was one whereby they grew like bloody weeds. Okay. Anyway, I happen to be coming from the horticultural industry in the late 90s. And yeah, I saw this. And so around the early 2000s, I decided to start selling them myself back when Trade Me was run by Sam. Okay. Back when Trade Me was back in those days. And you think, where am I going with this? But the essence of it was that I looked at society. I looked at products that I could sell that didn't open me up to liability, didn't open me up to somebody having a problem with something, and therefore they take me to court and it's all on my ass. No. And the yuccas which I was selling sold absolute gangbusters. Trade Me rocked back then. It doesn't nowadays. It's just another big virtual supermarket, virtual mall. And so all of that sort of thing, I look back then, I've looked through different things at different stages, and I've always been looking for something that is market relevant. That's why I'm doing now what I'm doing, but with the solvents. But to do so, I have to cover my ass because my wife's and my family are on the line. Okay, I can't afford that exposure. Okay, so I hope that all makes sense. I'm going to stop there. This is Dave Varley, and I'm just going to say, hey, listen, chuck me these questions because they fire me up with context and relevance, and I really value them. And hey, Mikey, thank you very much for your comment. The other gentleman about the LLC, thank you so much for yours. Chuck me more. Give it to me. Come on. That helps me to talk contextually with you and back to you, and we can have this ongoing conversation through over process. Won't be every 2 weeks like I said originally, but it'll be as it happens because hey, I'm working some crazy hours at the moment trying to study in my job in engineering and also think about this. So as you can see, I'm looking down at my screen to say bye.